Hey guys, I'm Saurabh and in this video I will be talking about the Nikon Z6. Thank you Nikon India for sending the Nikon Z6. I have been using this camera for a couple of weeks and in this video I will be sharing my experience with the Nikon Z6. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also make sure you hit the bell icon so that you're notified when I upload the next video. Now without wasting any time, let's get started. First, let's talk about the camera body. The build quality and grip is very good in the Nikon Z6. When you start using mirrorless cameras and you are already a DSLR user, there are certain mirrorless cameras whose grip is not that good. Especially when I use the Sony mirrorless cameras, the grip is not that comfortable. But coming from a Nikon DSLR user where the grip is really comfortable, I didn't find it difficult to use the Nikon Z6. The grip is really deep and it is very comfortable to use. The overall build quality is very similar to the Nikon flagship bodies, so there is no doubt that the build quality is also very good. There are no buttons on the left side, all the buttons are shifted to the right side. One major difference is the thumb pad which you can use for shifting your focusing points, and now shifting your focusing points becomes a lot easier. Talking about the viewfinder and the LCD screen, both are extremely high resolution, crisp and bright. Using the LCD screen and viewfinder is a very comfortable and enjoyable experience on this. Since this is an electronic viewfinder and it's a mirrorless camera, all the exposure adjustments you do, you will be seeing that in the viewfinder as well. What I found is the viewfinder is slightly brighter, just about 1/3 stop. When you take the image, the final image is a tad darker than what you see in the viewfinder. But overall, the display and the viewfinder is top notch. You also get a top LCD screen where the camera settings are shown. I don't use it much, but it's a helpful addition. The LCD screen doesn't articulate completely, so if you're a vlogger, it might be a problem for you. The lens mount that the Nikon mirrorless cameras use is the Z lens mount. So it's not the traditional lens mount that the Nikon DSLRs used to use. This one supports S lenses and you can also use your old Nikon lenses with the FTZ adapter. I have used even third-party lenses with the FTZ adapter and I have had no issues with the focusing and it works flawlessly. So that was all about the camera body. Generally, I would start with the photography part when I am reviewing a camera, but since I love the Z6 for videography, I'll start with the videography part. So the Nikon Z6 is capable of shooting 4K 30 FPS and 1080p 60 and 120 FPS. Both the 4K and 1080p videos look extremely good. The colors, the sharpness, the dynamic range are very good. I mostly shoot in flat because I feel the standard picture profile is bit too contrast for me. So I shoot in flat and color grading even the 8-bit files which the Nikon shoots internally is a pleasure to use. If you want more flexibility, you can shoot 10-bit N-Log with the Z6 where you get a complete full-frame 4K output, but you have to use an external recorder with it. The firmware update, which is rumored to come in April, will also help you to shoot 12-bit ProRes RAW, and that is going to be a huge deal for all the filmmakers out there. I wish that it could shoot log video internally, but I hope that Nikon will soon add it in the next version of the mirrorless cameras. The 4K video obviously looks a lot better, but even the 1080p looks really good in these cameras. You can upscale the 1080p to 4K and you won't see much quality difference. It also shoots 1080p 120 FPS as I said before, and even the slow motion videos that are shot at 1080p look very good. So if you want to upscale even the slow motion video, you can do that. Nikon also has an in-body stabilization. Now the in-body stabilization is not perfect, but it can be helpful sometimes when you're shooting handheld video. Continuous autofocus in video is something that you will find new in the Nikon mirrorless cameras. Earlier, the Nikon DSLRs didn't have a good continuous autofocusing system, but this time the continuous autofocus in Z6 works really good. I can trust the continuous autofocus of the Z6. Even with third-party lenses, I didn't find any issues with the continuous autofocus. It might not be as good as Canon, but with the new firmware updates, I feel it's going to be on par with the Canon and Sony. Now Z6 is a full-frame camera with a 24 megapixel resolution. Just because it's a lower megapixel version of the Z7, it is better in low light and there is no pixel binning. So you get very good 4K full-frame video which the Z7 cannot deliver but the Z6 can. That was all about the videography. Let's talk about the photography part now. The image quality is very good, the colors are vibrant, the sharpness is really good, and even the dynamic range is very good. When you're shooting in high dynamic range situations and you have exposed for the highlights, you can recover a lot of shadows, and that tells you how good the dynamic range of the Nikon Z6 is. Talking about the focusing part, this is where I find the Z6 and the Z7 both struggle a little bit. The single autofocus is fine, it works flawlessly, but when you're shooting in continuous autofocus, it doesn't have the continuous autofocus 3D tracking, and I found that my Nikon D750 is much better in continuous autofocusing than the Z6. I'm not saying that the continuous autofocus is bad, but I think it could be much better when you compare it with the Sony or Canon mirrorless cameras. The firmware update, again which is going to come in April, is going to give you eye autofocus on Z6. I don't know if it's going to be as good as Sony, but obviously it will help with the focusing situation. When you're shooting in continuous mode, the buffer fills really fast, and also there's a slight lag in the viewfinder. So if the subject is moving, then it becomes slightly difficult to track the subject. So I won't recommend the Z6 for fast-paced action. So overall for photography, it's a great camera. Other than the focusing, I didn't find any cons in this when it comes to photography. So when you combine the photography and the videography part, I feel Nikon has made a very good mirrorless system. The Nikon Z6 is not a perfect camera. There are certain drawbacks, like the single memory card slot. I understood that Nikon wanted to use a XQD card because XQD card is obviously better than SD cards right now. But if you're using a XQD card which is capable of such faster shooting, your camera has to be equally capable. And right now with the lag viewfinder and the buffer that fills up so fast, I don't think the camera is very capable of shooting in continuous mode. One more drawback that's kind of a deal breaker for me is when I'm changing lenses, the sensor is exposed. With the firmware update or with new additional hardware, they can fix it in the upcoming mirrorless cameras, but they have to do it just because when you're changing lenses, the sensor is very prone to capture dust very quickly. So the Nikon uses Z mount, as I said before. The Z mount is capable of using really wide lenses up to f1.2 as well. There is a 58mm 0.95 coming as well, but that's going to be a manual focus lens. Now the point is, Nikon has released 3 lenses. One is the f4, that was the lens I was using, a 24-70 kit lens, and the other are the 35 and 50mm prime lenses, and even those are not 1.4, those are 1.8 lenses. My point is, if the mount is capable of using 1.4, 1.2, Nikon should have made a lens to show off the capabilities of the new mount. Other than that, I don't feel lenses are an issue because I have been using my 70-200, my 15-30, even I used the Sigma 24-35, and I didn't find any issue when I combined it with the FDZ adapter. The battery life is not great, but it's pretty good. I have been using this camera for shooting a lot of 4K videos, lot of 1080p slow motion, and I've taken a lot of images as well, and I didn't find the battery life to be a negative point. Obviously, it is not as good as the Nikon D750, but taking into consideration this is the first mirrorless camera from Nikon, I hope it can be improved in the future versions. That was it from this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the review and I hope you got to know more about the Nikon Z6. If you like the video, press the like button. If you're new to the channel, as I said, make sure you subscribe to join this lovely family of more than 4 lakh people. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.